So, all right, welcome everybody to Peace Catalyst Taste of Peace event for the month, a prophetic witness to the West, and we'll be speaking with Saleem Anfous. My name is Peter Digitale Anderson. I'm the executive director at Peace Catalyst International. I'm also a peace builder and a community organizer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just a little bit about today's conversation. We'll kind of do some introductions to PCI and to Saleem here at the beginning. Then Saleem and I will have a conversation for maybe like roughly an hour, kind of about peace building work, Palestinian theology, particularly his work with Across the Divide, and how they are trying to speak to the West and invite Western churches into this conversation. We'll wrap up with some time at the end for some questions and responses. You can bring whatever's coming up for you. And then we'll finish in about 90 minutes. First, as part of an introduction, if you are new to Peace Catalyst, if you don't know us very well, I'd love to introduce you. Yeah, Peace Catalyst, who are we? I often have like 3 different framings for how do I talk about Peace Catalyst. Peace Catalyst is a global network of Christian peace builders. We are scattered across the world, the US, South America, Asia, Africa, trying to plug into our local communities with all sorts of projects, whatever fits into that space, to bring peace, invite the church and our communities into the work with us. We're a team that's working together to grow a movement of peace in the church and beyond. A Peace Catalyst is not just about the work that we are doing ourselves, but we are imagining how do we work for change in the church? How do we call the church into this deeper vision of peace at the heart of their theology, at the heart of what the church is meant to be doing as we partner with God for Shalom? So we're thinking in our local communities, but also the church more widely. And a Peace Catalyst, we're a community that's following Jesus's way of peace together. We often find as Christians who are moving deeper into God's vision of peace, sometimes it can feel lonely. It can be hard to find people to do this with. It can be hard to find our brothers and sisters in the faith who catch that vision with us. So at Peace Catalyst, we are also a community for people who are looking for connection, for support, for encouragement, for wisdom, for mentorship, and figuring out how do we do this together rather than having to do it as a lone wolf ourselves. So who is Peace Catalyst? At Peace Catalyst, we dream of a world where neighbors know and care for each other so they can flourish together. We dream of a world where God's shalom, God's peace, is made real. As followers of Jesus, we particularly believe that the church is called to work with our communities to help make this flourishing a reality. The church is intended to be involved in this shalom building, working with our neighbors, not doing for our neighbors, not fixing things and telling our neighbors what to do, but working alongside our neighbors in collaboration and partnership and solidarity with them. And we also know that the church and Christians too often fail at this. Our church, particularly here in the West, is often known for making things worse more than making things better, causing more harm than healing. So Peace Catalyst works to build this world by equipping and mobilizing Christians in our communities to cross divisions and partner for the good of all. That's a little bit about us. At the end of this call, I will say a little bit more about ways to get involved and some more of the tangible things that we're doing. So stay tuned for that. We would love to see you continue to plug in with us. But one of the ways that we do this work is with these monthly calls, these Taste of Peace calls, we call them, where either we're doing a introductory workshop for some skills or some peace building ideas or theology ideas, or we're having conversations with either our own team members, such as Saleem here, or with other peace builders and experts around the world who we are excited to learn from them and hear about what peace building looks like in their context. So I'm especially excited to have this conversation with Saleem here today, who joined Peace Catalyst's team not quite a year ago, but it's been a little bit. And also, like, I have not had the chance to have very many conversations with Saleem, so I'm particularly excited about this. But Saleem is based in Bethlehem, in Palestine. He's been in Bethlehem for about 25 years. He was Palestinian born and bred. In addition to being a team member with Peace Catalyst, he's the producer of the Across the Divide podcast, which I imagine many of you are familiar with. And we'll talk more about that later in the conversation. He's also a project manager at Masalaha. He manages the Christian Muslim Young Adults program. He's also a tour guide in the West Bank. And on top of all of that, he still has time to be an amazing husband and father to his wonderful family. And Saleem is passionate about amplifying Palestinian peace building voices and breaking down the internal walls and build bridges across differences. And we'll hear quite a bit more about that as we go into this. If you would like to learn more about Saleem and support his work or support the Across the Divide, their work, there's the link there, and you can use a QR code if you'd like. And we will send out a follow-up email with all of this as well. So there are all the ways for you to stay connected. We would love for you to do so. All right. So let's dive in, shall we? Um, yeah, I would like to introduce you to Saleem and allow Saleem to talk about himself a little bit. Um, I'd actually be interested, Saleem, as we get going. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to like do more of your bio, like who are you? How did you get into this? And that's great. Before we do that, I kind of want to acknowledge the increased level of tension that we're feeling around the world as the conflict in the Middle East has now escalated to be an all-out volleys back and forth and potentially worse with Iran, and that's capturing everyone's attention right now. Um, and I know that has also affected life in Bethlehem and in the West Bank. Lots of security concerns, a lot of things have been shut down. Peace Catalyst was actually intending to send a pilgrimage over in partnership with Sabeel that was supposed to go next week, and that's been postponed. Flights have been canceled. Um, yeah, what's it like on the ground in Bethlehem right now, Saleem? What's life like? How's it affecting you? How are people feeling?
Well, first, thanks for having me. How is it really affecting things on the ground? It's where should I start? Unfortunately, the big question we ask ourselves is, what did we do? Why are we facing collective punishment because of a start of war that Israel started on Iran? Like, what did we do? Because the reality on the ground, the West Bank, uh, all checkpoints, literally every almost single city and village in the West Bank is blockaded. There are either certain times that we're allowed to leave, and sometimes we're not allowed to leave at all. So we're completely cut off. Uh, the whole West Bank is shut down. Employment is significantly decreasing. Lack of work, lack of movement. Um, we can see like if you come here, you'll see how people are struggling like to fill up gas. There's no gas in the gas stations because they're afraid and worried, so they're filling up gas. We don't know what's going on. Uh, we had a limited amount of people who had some permits that were allowed to enter to Jerusalem. Those permits were allowed as church permits, and now even those are not allowed. So it's very tough. Now, speaking about the reality on the ground in general in the West Bank, that itself, you know, the fact there's checkpoints and we cannot move around and travel and all that kind of stuff, that does not even, the fact because the big news is so much on the war, people don't talk about like, the destructions of what's happening in the refugee camps, which literally just 2 days ago, now they just started in another refugee camp in Nablus, the Balata, which is actually the most condensed refugee camp in the West Bank. Now the military has invaded, and it has been for the last 2 days evacuating every Palestinian from the refugee camp to start demolishing it. You're talking about more
Mm,
than 25 to 35, between 25 and 35,000 people that are living in that refugee camp.
mm,
And let alone, the politicians, the Israeli politicians, when we hear them. Um, Now our next step is the West Bank. The arrests, the raids every village during the night. So the challenge is the news can't cover it. There's bigger news to cover. It's challenging. It's surprising how, despite of everything, the Israeli military continues to attack and invade and raid Palestinian villages and cities in the West Bank. Let alone, let's not forget Gaza. I mean, Gaza is still it's still suffering in an unimaginable way. The siege has prevented aid from coming in for what now 3 months, 3.5 months.
mm,
In the last 2 days, 3 days, we have noticed there's a high number of Palestinians who are waiting in line on what is supposed to be basically the American aid company that is providing aid to the Palestinians. In the last 3 days, more than 200 Palestinians have been killed, waiting in line, going trying to get to those places where they're hoping to get some food. So
mhm,
these kind of stuff is unbelievable. Let alone the rise of now noticing, which this morning we were just talking about it, how we're also noticing even in Israel, the fact that a lot of bomb shelters are only provided in Jewish neighborhoods and Jewish
mm,
majority cities. And so the cities and the neighborhoods where there are Palestinians or Arabs or non-Jews, they don't have bomb shelters. And so when Palestinians try to get to the bomb shelters to seek refuge, we've seen many videos have been sharing around and stories from friends that we know that Jewish people are basically, they would like other Israelis will stop Palestinians from entering into the bomb shelters,
mm,
and calling them because you're Arabs, you're not allowed to. So the escalation is really rising up in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, in Israel, everywhere. And it's a matter of collective punishment, and we don't know why. Like what did we do for that collective punishment on war you started on Iran? So
mm. Thank you. Uh, yeah, mentioned it's really brings out a lot of the injustices and disparities that you already know so clearly on the ground. And in particular, I think like we're observing this here in the West so much is because Iran is taking so much of the airtime and the attention that like between the genocide and the ongoing incursions in the West Bank, which are already being ignored in the struggle to keep people's attention on, are now being ignored even further. Mm,
yeah, imagine like Bethlehem City, the city, Bethlehem, right? The
mm,
city of peace, as we call it. 90 checkpoints around it. And now they're completely blocked, completely closed since the start of last week of the war. There's only
mm,
one or two exits and entrance with Israeli military, and they check, and they don't just they're not just standing there.
mm,
We're hearing stories and people sharing things that the fact that if they stop you, they could force to take your phone and check. And if there's any images or chats or even videos of the rockets, anything relating to the war that's happening, you could get arrested or beaten, or your phone could be
mm.
confiscated. You know,
So it's
so
just an
it's
excuse to ramp up the oppression even further. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm, thank you. Thank you for that. Um, yeah. Can I know we'll continue back into that conversation in a moment, but I'd like to let people get to know you a little bit better. You say, well, that who are you? Where are you from? How did you get into this work?
So yeah, I'm Saleem, and I currently live in Beit Sahur, which is the city of the shepherds, where the story of the shepherds appear to the angels appear to the shepherds, telling them the good news about the birth of Christ, which is a city, it's an intertwined city with Bethlehem. Bethlehem is literally just 2 minutes away, just back there. My wife is from Beit Sahur. I'm not from here. I'm actually originally from a small town called Aboud, which is northwest of Ramallah, central area of the West Bank. Um, I quick backstory, which really plays, I think, I feel for me, it plays a major role of all of this, is I was actually born in Saudi Arabia. My parents were there. My dad was working in Saudi Arabia for a very long time. So I was born there, my siblings as well. And in the 80s, when I was born, It was very different than what we hear Saudi Arabia is right now. It was a lot more strict. There was no churches, no nothing when it comes to like even practicing our faith as Christians. So I grew up uh, very challenged in my faith. The only way I was able to know about my faith was just my parents telling me and educating me by word of mouth. Even the Bible, they couldn't get in. And so my parents, after a long time, they decided that it's better for us to grow with the extended family and come back home. So when we moved back, for me, it was a big shock to see the idea and the concept when I was a child to see the concept of basically, oh, there's churches everywhere. Everyone is Christian, I have siblings. There's a huge community of Christians around me. That actually really affected me to the point that I fell in love in the whole idea. Um, and so I actually wanted to become a Catholic priest. I
Mm,
decided to become a Catholic priest, and I went to the seminary here in Bethlehem. During the second Intifada happened when I was there. Uh, I don't know if you know much, but the second Intifada was an uprising that the Palestinians started basically because of the continuous oppression and the injustices that was happening to us. And so, the year 2000, an uprising happened. Um, and the uprising was a key moment in my life where, when I was completely focusing on my faith and my relationship with Christ, the reality on the ground challenged me a lot. And the biggest question when I was 15, I remember asking God, how do you tell me to love an enemy, to love my neighbors while my enemy is literally killing them? How is this possible? How can I understand what is this love? And so I actually decided not to continue and finished high school, left the seminary, and I actually decided to study media, and I wanted to use it as a tool against oppression, against the occupation that has been happening. I thought it was a nonviolent way of resistance, and so that's how I decided.
mm,
And there was an actual good opening at the Bethlehem Bible College where I signed up, and as we say, it was kind of a God's plan thing that I came back to Bethlehem and I joined the Bethlehem Bible College. But when I was there, I was challenged again by folks and friends of mine like Saleem who used to be the CEO of Salaha, and some others like Jack Sara and other people who challenged me, supported me as well with these big questions that I had regarding my faith and God and what's going on in the reality on the ground. And thank God they were able to really guide me in a path, especially like friends like Mulder, who he has been a very great friend with me for a long time, and now he's my pastor. So,
mm,
and so there was a moment where, because of all of this, I was able to reconcile in my identities between my identity, my faith, my Christian identity, and my Palestinian identity, the struggle that I'm facing, and how, as a Christian, should I work with this? Because seeing the reality on the ground, you would see two different types of Christians. Either the Christians that put Christianity and their faith aside because they think that's an obstacle on how to fight the injustices that is happening, because some of the theology interpretation and some of the understanding to be pacifist, all that kind of stuff, they think this is weak and we shouldn't. And within almost the same concept, but in a different direction, I have been involved with a lot of other Christians that they would rather shut their doors in the church and just pray to God and don't get involved in any of what's going on in the reality. Let's
mm,
just focus on souls and try to get people to Christ, and that's it. And it was challenging for me, as it is challenging for many others that I know around me. And when I was able to reconcile with the help of so many and finding a lot of other friends that are the same age of mine, and going through that, we built a community. And that community helped us a lot to really do so many work in the community, especially within the young adult Christian community and the Christian children. In any way possible to really guide them within that same. Because if we struggled, the reality on the ground hasn't changed, so I'm sure they're struggling as well. So yeah, I shifted with multiple jobs, and I ended up choosing to be, I really wanted to become a tour guide as well. Um,
Hmm.
I studied that, and COVID happened. So it was right during COVID, I was studying tour guiding because I thought it was an opportunity to learn more about the Christian history, the church in the land, the political situation, everything. To share that with the locals, but as well with internationals as a good opportunity. Thank God my English was good through school, and so that's why it helped. So I thought that was a good opportunity. And yeah, so that's how I did it. I became a tour guide, and I really felt it was a passion of mine. It was a mission of mine to help people around who come. And then after that, because of the war in Gaza and the genocide, the start of the genocide after October 7 in 2023, like many others, I lost my job
Mm.
um, for almost 6 months. It was a big challenge. It was struggling. Let alone, let's not forget that tourism was just starting to pick up right after COVID, so it wasn't actually that good. So I was reached out by Daniel Munayer, who is the current CEO of Musalaha, and he's a very close friend of mine. The Munayer family is a very close friend of mine. He is part of the community that we're working a lot. And so he told me, listen, Salim, I really know you have a big passion for young adults. And what do you think of this project? You could manage a group of manage this program where you have about 30 young adults, Muslims and Christians, who are basically together. They're working along on reconciliation, peace building, and basically like justice driven, and set an example to the rest of the community in a very good, proper way. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a dream
Mm.
job for me. Because growing with the influence of being like in Saudi Arabia and all of this stuff, I, I, I always wanted to build this relationship between Muslims and Christians. Uh, when I moved here to Beit Sahur, because I'm not from Beit Sahur, I'm not from the population of Beit Sahur, because, as a community and a culture, we're very family based. And my family is small. I'm not from Beit Sahur, so no one knows me. So for a very long time, I was always confronted from a lot of the people in the community thinking that I'm a Muslim. And so
Mm.
I treat them in a different way. And, I try to treat them good. And then basically they get shocked when I'm a Christian. So a lot of my personal experience, I wanted to give that to the locals. So I have now for a year and a half uh, been working part-time job with Musalaha, leading young adults, and it has been absolutely amazing. The depth of dialogues that we have is so for me it's really exciting because to see that we're not just we're not doing this like nice beautiful, how do you call it, just let's show that we're good, let's do
Mm.
the surface level talks and just show that we're doing a good thing. No, 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 no. Like we get discussions on, like, we bring theologians and Muslim sheikhs, and we talk about resistance, armed resistance, not peaceful resistance. What does the Quran talk about? What does the Bible talk about it? These deep kind of dialogues that it's really good. And as well, we serve in the community, so that helps.
Mm.
And of course, across the divide, which we're going to talk a lot, I'm sure. Which basically, as I said, the group of one of some of the group of mine with the community, we've been chatting for almost a year on the idea of, like, let's do a podcast,
Mm.
and it took us a year, literally a year, where we're just debating and how and what to do and how to do it, and it was just crazy. And after October 7 happened, we're like, hearing all the news, hearing people, sadly, Western churches supporting Israel in a way that is kind of very shocking for us, ignoring us, very un-Christ centered,
Mm.
where they don't care about the death of people. They just want to support Israel in one way. And so we're like, you know what? Let's just start the podcast. Like, this is too much. We cannot just keep on. And so we basically literally launched our first couple of episodes right after, and actually our first episode was on October, after
Mm.
October 7. And from there, we started organizing ourselves more and more. Even like Pastor Munder, who joined us in a coalition with Christ at a checkpoint. to do some podcasts with him that he's doing under or collaboration with us, and as well with Peace Catalyst. Now we're in partnership, which I feel we're very excited that we're growing. We did not expect that our podcast is going to reach a lot of people and have so much influence, but
mm,
we had a dream, and I'm happy that after now a year and a half, we can see that happening.
mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
we have
clearly,
three girls
yeah.
as just a neat thing. So my wife and I, we have three girls, and
Mm,
yeah, Peter and I, you and I, we were just chatting. It's fun, but it's challenging also having girls, especially honestly, within what's going on here.
mm.
It is not easy.
Do you mind saying a little bit about how the kids are working through this? What's this look like for them? I didn't prep you with that question, but that seems like a really valuable one right now.
And it's one of honestly, it's one of the biggest challenges because uh, I really want to you know how do you protect them? Like, you everything is out of our control. Uh, the economical situation is a disaster. It's very challenging. You want to spend, I'm spending much more time trying to find jobs or working extra hours, but at the
Mm,
same time, you want to be there with them. You, they hear, like, for example, the rockets that are shooting. When we go to the checkpoints, when we want to go visit my family and they get confronted by the military in different ways, they're growing up in a challenge that children shouldn't be growing up in these kind of challenges. When they talk to me, because they're right on the age where they ask a lot of questions, right? They're kids, they're
mm,
6, 7, and 11, so they're asking too many questions. And a lot of these questions are like, why would a kid ask these questions? Why don't you just ask me how to play this game, or how to do let's do something fun or something. But they would ask me questions like, Dad, we've been for a year praying. Every single morning we pray for the war in Gaza to end. Why is God not listening to us? How am I going to answer that?
mm,
um, when when they see the rockets hitting, and kids in school, they talk and they come back to me and it's like, Dad, yeah, the rockets are hitting the Israelis now. They were hitting us and now they're getting hit by the rockets. And so you have to get into discussions with little kids about the effect of it and how harmful it is. And we should never get involved in the concept of dehumanizing someone else.
mm,
And if we don't teach that from the early ages, I mean, then we lost because we could see that in the reality where I'm living. The
mm,
dehumanization of one another is it's the worst thing possible that we're seeing. Um, so it's challenging, and yet alone, the effect of the rockets and the sounds, for example, now, which they get freaked out or scared about it.
mm,
You find ways to protect them. You find ways to change topics. It's challenging every day. Um, yeah, it's a nonstop, continuous challenge where you want to provide for them the best, but the best isn't there. Um, as a
mm,
very simple example, Sunday, I decided to take the girls to have a breakfast on a picnic together, and because of the surrounding of Bethlehem, there's only one place. It's like a monastery. It's a Clemizan monastery that they have a nice park. We get there, we're super excited. We have breakfast with us, and the guard said,
mm,
unfortunately, the military came. The Israeli military came and gave us an order. We're not allowed to get the people in because it's at the edge border of the Bethlehem district, and so we literally had to find a place on the side of the road with a nice area that we could sit and jumped over the fence, and we just sat there and enjoyed it. And I told my kids, I told my girls that we're not gonna stop. We're not gonna surrender. We're not gonna let this type of persecution that we're living stop us from enjoying our life.
mm,
We are humans, and we have the right. And Jesus promised us that we have to live for the best of it, right? And so, even amongst these challenges, you find the best ways to do it, to give them hope, to give them a way of thinking beyond the challenges. So, and it's a lot more, but
Mm, and I can imagine in the midst of that pain and struggle, it also gives you many, unfortunate, but many opportunities to really invite them to envision what sort of people and what sort of world they want to grow up and create, and how to be resilient and still practice joy. Yeah, I love the story of you going on the picnic. Thank you.
yeah.
The So you're bringing a lot of experience and perspective to this conversation. Um, as a tour guide is part of your mission and your love for your home and inviting people into that and sharing it. Your work with Masaha, your history of figuring out what does it mean to be a Christian minority in both Palestine and also Saudi Arabia. Um, your work with Across the Divide. You've already said a little bit about kind of where Across the Divide podcast came from and like how it got started. Can you say a little bit more, especially as you're drawing all of your background experience through this, and then the rest of the experiences and background of the people on your team? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to do with the Across the Divide? Like, what do you want to see happen?
We really want to amplify a Palestinian voice, Christian Palestinian voice. We feel the West, there's too much noise around us that the West is influenced by, and they need to listen to their brothers and sisters in Christ in the land because they need, they need. We want to really share the voice of Palestinian Christians uh, or people that are supporting the Palestinian Christian or supporting us in the sense of like with their knowledge, even in the West, um, that basically talk about peace and justice, talk about our faith in the midst of all of this. How do we live it? What do we do? What are our struggles? What's going on? Um, what do we think, even in the theology? What's the challenges in our faith amidst all of this? And so this is kind of like the focus of it, and we want to share uh, that to as many people as we can. So we thought that the podcast, since it is kind of like the growing, one of the best growing ways to reach out to the world, to start that podcast. So we invite Palestinians and internationals, talk about theology, uh, activists who talk about how their actions are based on their faith, doing a lot of good in the world for peace and justice. Uh, and so a lot of these kind of stuff that we we hope we want to reach as many as possible,
Mm,
either through the podcast, maybe with the influence of the podcast, we could reach out people with live, hosting episodes or something like with people at different areas, partnering with other people, building relationships with individuals and others, creating materials. Like, for example, the way we do the podcast, for example, we pick specific topics that we see them very important. And so, for example, one of the series we launched, like 10 episode series about Christian Zionism, where we brought historians and theologians and Palestinians who are influenced by it and internationals, and they let them all talk about Christian Zionism. We just actually finished another series which we talked about tourism and the influence of tourism in the land,
mm,
how it is the propaganda around tourism, the influence of tourism, what to do and what not to do. And so these kind of stuff where we're providing materials in a way that it could be helpful for a lot of people around the world.
mm. Can you say a little bit more about why that matters? I'm hearing, yeah, many folks here I know who have already listened to the podcast and are already sold and like, oh yeah, this is incredibly powerful and meaningful. And I've also deeply appreciated many of the episodes. Um, what is the church in the West missing, or what does it need to learn from the Palestinian Christians? Where's the change that really needs to shift in the West?
I would like people to have a chance to listen to a Palestinian Christian voice that is struggling in the land of Christ, in the land where Christ himself was walking, teaching, living within the same context, right? I mean, Jesus was under in here, right here in Palestine, right? He was under a military occupation by the Romans. He was confronted by a corruption within his system, within the community that he was in, by the Pharisees and other leaders, and the challenges in the society and the culture that he was also trying to sometimes challenge and bring up new teachings and stuff. And so every single teaching he was telling his disciples for 3 years, he was doing it amidst of the context of all of this. And honestly and sadly, I'm saying it that today, as a Palestinian Christian, I'm actually living the same context as Christ is. I'm under a military occupation. There's a lot of corruption in the political parties here, and the situation that is messed up, and as well that culture and the tension is around us that sometimes we're missing the teaching of Christ, and so I feel either locally and also internationally we're hoping that we might have a voice, we might have a chance to reach out to the world that could give a different new perspective. It's not easy because we are challenging uh, multiple narratives like Christian Zionism, theology that has spread in the Western churches for a very long time, for like 100 and something years, and has influenced the church to only completely think of the idea of Israel and blessing Israel and all of what comes underneath that. But on the expenses of who? Is that Christ centered? And so these questions we're trying to raise in a sense that we want to show the reality as a Palestinian Christian suffering because of all this stuff. And honestly, sadly, with majority support from the Christian West. How many church leaders or Christian leaders today, or in the last couple of days, for example, have supported Trump or in basically the war against Iran to get involved in it? Is that a Christian thing? Is that a Christian faith? Is that a Christ-centered faith understanding? And like, it doesn't make sense for me. Like, I cannot believe it. And so within this, we're trying to reach out. We're trying to tell people. We're trying to share a message that can you hear to your brother and sister who suffers from this? We are trying to put Christ centered in our life in a daily basis, but there's multiple challenges that we're facing, and we would like you to hear our voice. Help us, support us, empower us, because you are considered to be my brother and sister in Christ. So we need to be a family together. And if you continue to be on the opposite direction, for me, it's big. It's a challenge. I will. We might lose Christians. We might lose all of the Christians that are living in the land of Christ that have been here for 2,000 years. Since Pentecostal day, Christians and the church have always and for long existed in this land. I'm becoming as a tour guide now, explaining a little bit of history, but but like it matters a lot because for us, we believe that we are the mother church, right? We are the church that existed in this land for a very long time. So for me, it's not just a matter of I became a Christian. I was born as a Christian, and I was taught in a way to take the flame of the first church, the Pentecostal, since Pentecostal day, the church, the flame that went to them. I was taught to take it over, and that's what I'm trying to do with my girls. And so
Mm,
I want I cannot do that. It's becoming exhausting. It's becoming tiring. It's becoming a lot really painful and so much struggling. Not because of as much as the occupation, as much as seeing brothers and sisters, seeing the church, specifically in the West, support the oppression that we're facing, supporting the injustices that we're facing as Palestinians, both as Christians and Muslims. And so that's why we're really trying to share our
mm,
voice, to have a different perspective, influence, teaching.
mm. I appreciate that, Saleem. So, like, there are two elements of that that really stand out to me of what you're all trying to accomplish. Like, on on one level, you're inviting the church in the West into solidarity with, like, into relationship, into practice. Like, so often our media here in the story and a lot of the dominant church in the West really just focuses on, well, you have Jews and you have Muslims, and it's a conflict between the two. And regardless of how people see that conflict, it's easy to for the story of the church existing there and having been there for 2,000 years, being in the midst of this. So calling Christians in the West to recognize that there's a church here that's suffering in the midst of this, that's trying to be a symbol of peace in the midst of this, trying to work out their faith in the midst of occupation. Um, and Christians in the West need to be in community and relationship and solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are facing this. Um, I think that's so essential for so much of the church that misses that. Um, but then I'm also hearing this deeper, even deeper call to faith, to discipleship, of this call to be more Christ-centered than you're seeing many churches in the West be, and really challenging them as you're telling the stories out of the Palestinian church churches. There are several different traditions. Don't want to assume you're all monolith, but the conversations that you're having, where you're coming from, um, because you're working out your faith as a community in this space where you are in the land of Jesus, closely tied to the culture of Jesus, um, under occupation and political oppression, just as Jesus and his people were at the time. You have a different perspective on what does it mean to be Christ-centered in very difficult spaces, which many in the West don't have. Yeah, I'm reflecting quite a bit here. There is a question coming. Um,
Clarify, we're not perfect.
yeah,
We're not sharing it because we figured it out. We didn't actually. We're still, trust
that,
me. We just
mm,
want to share what
yeah,
we're, yeah.
that I actually really appreciate that. I think that is for those of us who are in the parts of the church who are trying to be in solidarity and who do quote unquote get it, um, and see the importance of that. It's also really easy to look at churches such as yours and lift them up as this model, like, here's the ideal we need to live for, and they've got it all figured out, and we're completely wrong over here. Um, I don't know. Can I hear a little bit more about that wrestling? Like, where the church in the West has so much to learn from what y'all are experiencing there. Where do you see your church, church widely, church in Palestine? Where do you see it living into this Christ-centered vision well, and where does it still have room to grow? Um, and then maybe in your mind, what does the church in the West have to learn from that struggle as well? Big questions.
Comes to mind.
Two.
Yeah,
You
big
got
question.
you got 2 minutes. Nah,
Okay.
take your time. Take your time.
The first um I think the first thing that comes to my mind, if where did we figure it out, is I think the only way we figured it out is not to be in power. I think that I think one of the biggest problem in the church when the church became the power or
Mm,
control of society somehow, where they mixed. Um, but we're trying. We figured it out that we always be the opposition, just like Christ, how he was. He was always the
mm,
opposition of the impact, the powers that were there, that were existing, uh, to be with the community, with the people, not to be in power. Um, and I would say maybe we kind of figured it out. I don't know. Let
mm,
alone what things we really need to grow. the reality on the ground is the Christian community or the Christian population is really shrinking. Uh, Literally in March, the latest numbers actually was in March. The latest number was the Christian population now is 38,000.
Mhm.
That's the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. We're only 38,000 out of 5.5 million. Uh, you have about almost double the number in Israel. So total, we're like around 100, 120,000 Palestinian, like Arab Christians, Palestinian Christians in the total of our area where there's 12 million, at least I think 12 million, 13 million people. Um, so we're shrinking. And the biggest obstacle that we're facing as Christians is we speak now as a minority.
Mhm.
And if any of you or even you, Peter, you know the danger of when people become a minority. They become isolating, they isolate themselves, they want to come up with their own space and lifestyle so they could should distinguish themselves from other communities and other people. And around the world in history, when a population or a group of people, community, when they become minority and they believe they're a minority, they would lose they would lose by the end, right? They'll become disconnected from the community and society, right? That's all around the world through history. But then if we look at it in the reality here on the ground, we're talking about a Christian community that is sadly going within the direction of believing that they're a minority,
Mhm.
which means we're going to be isolating ourselves, which means we're going to almost, as a community, as a whole, we're going into the edge of the opposite of what Christ wants us to do, right? Christ doesn't want us to be isolated. Christ doesn't want us to hide our light under the bed. Christ doesn't want us to not be the salt and light on earth, right? And that is the biggest challenge.
Mhm.
Uh, a lot of this is the majority of it is because of the occupation. As many studies and researchers has been shown that the struggles that we're facing as a church, as a Christian community here, is the number one reason is because of the occupation. The occupation and its treatment, that how it's because of the struggle of the economical situation because of the occupation, the way they're treating Palestinians, the way in general, the way they try to enforce this way of distinguishing between Christians and Muslims, like giving Christians permission but not the Muslims at the checkpoint. They ask questions, for example, if you're a Christian or not, so they can give you a pass and not put in front
Mhm.
of other people. And as big as some of these examples, let alone, I mean, in the society itself, yes, we struggle, but we're not persecuted by the Muslim community, but we are persecuted by the occupation, right? The literal fact of bombing the church in Gaza is
Mhm.
is is a reality of it, where Muslims and Christians are seeking refuge in the church itself. So challenges like these, struggles like these, where every day I have to pass by a checkpoint and get confronted by my enemy, right? The reality of who he
Mhm.
is, and I have to be reminded by Christ that I have to love my enemy. Yet uh, they they're an enemy. I mean, they like the fact that, for example, as a short example, um, Easter Day, after I celebrated with my family, coming back home, because of the checkpoints, we actually reached one of the main big checkpoints close to Bethlehem around 8:30 at night. We're extremely tired. The girls are sleeping at the back, and the soldier, just laughing and enjoying his time, stops us. He asks us to roll the window. What are you guys doing? Where are you coming from? Ask these questions. And we're trying to explain to him, we were celebrating Easter, Pesach, whatever, like, you could understand it. And then he basically says, oh, yeah, I just, Christ, your Jesus just passed by the checkpoint right now. I stopped him and then I just let him go. So the idea of mocking like this, the
Mhm.
living in enemy is a thing that is a daily life, let alone a lot of other teachings of Christ himself. And so the challenge be the salt, to continue to be the salt, it's not an easy task.
mm,
We fall so many times. It's challenging so many times. We cry out to Christ. It's like, where are you? Um, it's not my girls that alone are asking the fact, where are you, God, when we're praying to you, when we're reaching out to you to change what's the reality of what's going on. It's literally out of our hands. You want us to be the hands and feet for you, but it is literally out of our hands. And we're speaking, we're boycotting, we're moving, but it is big. And so the challenge for us is how much, despite of how challenging this is, we should not forget that it was only 12 disciples and they made it. So we're trying to do
mm,
this, learn that we have to make it. But as much as we also see the disciples failed so many times, it is the same challenge we're facing.
mm. I'm I'm appreciating the loving your enemy aspect of this. Like, particularly as I'm thinking like what are some particular things that the church in the West can be learning from? In in America, we are really good if you are part of a white majority Christian church. We are really good at imagining that we have enemies, but mostly it's either people we don't like or we disagree with. Um, Most of us, if we're in a dominant position in our society, we don't have people who are actively wanting to oppress us and hurt us. Your community does have that. I appreciate you naming the guards of the checkpoint being actual enemies who are oppressing, who are causing harm. Um, and just that practice, both the successes and the failures, like figuring out how do you follow Jesus in loving your enemy in that context. Um, I imagine is something that many of us in the West can really learn from and have be challenged by. Do you mind saying a little bit more like what does that look like in practice? How do you do that?
It's easy. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought it might be.
There's a trick that no, I'm just kidding. Um, it's very challenging. It's challenging in multiple levels because you're reaching out with a olive branch in the name of Christ to people that either they understand or don't understand your faith and why you're doing it. So they're responding back in a negative way. So you need to figure out how to do it. You're doing that in a context where I'm living in a society as a society is suffering. So sometimes my society gets confused that why are you trying to love the enemy in especially like when it comes to a Muslim community or other communities where what is that understanding of concept of loving an enemy? Like it's how why do you want to do it? You're how do you are you okay with the oppression that's happening because they don't understand the interpretation of it. So like to teach it, to understand it, to live it, to continue living it, to demonstrate something, it's not easy. Yeah, I could share two stories that
Mm,
like this happened that in different it happens in different ways. A couple of years ago, actually, it was a while ago. We were driving from Ramallah to Bethlehem, and we were stopped by the Israeli police, and they wanted to give us a fine in a car because they said they were driving like there was a they wanted to give us a ticket, and we're like, but we didn't do anything wrong. Like, what was happening? But basically, the Israeli police has authority on a lot of their main roads even in the West Bank, so they could give us a ticket, and you can do nothing about it. And while I was trying to talk to the police officer, he was in the car. He
mm,
called me over and he was giving me a ticket, and I was very upset. Very upset. I was really angry that he's just giving us a
mm,
ticket with no even explanation or nothing. And I don't know how it came out, but I looked at both of the police officers in the car, and I started screaming at their face, really angry. And I was in a loud voice, really screaming, telling them, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves you. And after that, I was like, wonder what they were thinking because I could tell from their faces they were completely confused of what was going on. They're they're expecting my retaliation as a normal because they do that to force us to retaliate, and so basically they could arrest us or do something.
Mm,
But for a guy to scream at their face that Jesus loves them, they're like, "What are you talking about?" I could tell that I was safe. I think it was too much of
mm,
confusing for them that they let me go. But this is how it is to love an enemy. I angry, but I don't know. Um, Another story. My wife and I were taking our girls. It was, I think, 2, 3 years ago. We were taking them to the zoo in Jerusalem, and
mm,
we had permits. It was time when they gave us permission. It was during Easter period, so they give us specific permission for us to allow us to go into Jerusalem to either be able to visit holy sites and stuff like that. And that was way before the war, so now we don't have permits at all. But so
mm,
basically, when we were going, we got to the checkpoint. My wife passes by, and the youngest two goes with her. My oldest daughter, she's with me. And when I got to the soldier, he said, "No, you're not allowed to pass." I was like, "Why not? I literally have the right at least to ask you why not. I mean, can't I?" So I was like, "Why can I pass? I actually have the permission with me. I have it. Like, what's the problem with it?" It's like, "I
mm,
just don't want you to pass." I'm like, "But why not? I'm literally just going to go with my family." And because I kept on asking why not, like, what's the problem with it? The soldier, because with him and his way of thinking, the way of the military exposing their oppression on us, they're taught to have authority. Don't argue with me, right? And just put the
mhm,
authority on it. So it's like, he grabbed his gun, he started shouting, and then he points the gun at me, and he's like, just go back, Of course, my wife freaks out. She's like, listen, let's cancel the whole thing. Let's go back. My daughter's right next to me. We just turn around, we get to the car, and so my wife and I were talking, trying to figure out what to plan as a plan B to do with girls. While we're talking, my oldest daughter, who back then she was like 9, and she goes, "Dad, why did the soldier scream at you like this?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm Unfortunately, he's using his authority in the wrong way, and he's using it on me, and he's preventing us to move. And what she told me next was very shocking for me. She told me, "Dad, the way he was screaming at you, I was looking at his gun, and I wished I grabbed his gun and shot him."
mhm,
For me, that was a very big shock. I was like, "What did you just say?" I'm like, What? Um, how would a 9-year-old girl think that way? She's a child, right? I mean, how would children think that way?" And I was like, "No, Celia, we shouldn't think that way. Please, let's always understand that there is a difference between a person and his actions. He's not evil. His actions are evil. We should not do an evil thing to them." Uh, I don't know how to respond to them in the other way. Like, let's never forget that they're human beings and Jesus loves them.
mm,
Um, and since then, every time when we pass any checkpoints, we have a nickname for the soldiers at the checkpoints. We call them farty pants as a funny way to just laugh about it, passing any checkpoints instead of being very stressful. But at the same
mm,
time, I always tell my daughters, like, so what is our lesson always? And they always respond that they're not evil. Jesus loves them, and their actions are evil. Because her response made me really scared and also understand the reality how we dehumanize each other. And
mm,
it's so easy. It's so dangerous that it's so easy to dehumanize each other. Um, so yeah, these are kind of such simple examples of the reality and challenges of the concept of what it is to love an enemy, and it's not easy.
mm. Thank you for that. Those are beautiful and heartrending stories. I'm really appreciating it can be so easy to put y'all who are practicing nonviolence in the midst of conflict on a pedestal and like holding the reality of the anger and sometimes hatred that you were feeling and still choosing love in the midst of that, even when it's really hard, is a powerful testimony. I want to wrap up in a moment here to leave space for other people to ask some questions, but maybe it's like a parting question, and you can take this kind of in whatever direction you want. Um, if you wanted to, I don't know, cast a vision or invite the church to do some imagination, like what would peace and justice in Palestine-Israel look like? What could it look like? And you don't have to get into politics and stuff like that if you want to. Like, there's a whole lot of opinions about what the right thing to do is, and clearly no one's figured it out yet. But like, if you're imagining what the future could be and how the church in the West can help be part of that imagination and help support it, how can you challenge them to expand their own vision? It's a very broad question, so you can choose to
Yeah, I
dive in
think
how you like.
there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways. I think just since we've been talking a lot about the idea of dehumanizing each other and how easy that is, I, I, I I really want to challenge the church in the West in a way that ask more questions on what's going on here. Discover the reality more. Understand what is going on. Understand what because the moment the church really understands it, they have more knowledge. Uh, the church, we're the lights on the world. So
Mm,
not use our light as a tool to support any kind of oppression. And the way to know that is to ask a lot more questions, reach out to people, understand that there's always two sides to the narrative to understand. And why am I saying this? Because I know for a very long time the Israeli narrative was much more influenced in the church in the West. Um, but now there's an opportunity to see the things on the ground, like the what's going on in Gaza, what's going on here, what's going on in the ground. Like, is that right? Is that wrong? Is there another opinion? Should I ask other people? And hoping that the church, when it expands its knowledge by opening itself, there's no harm. Literally, there's no harm in inviting other people that has different narratives and different stories of the reality of what's going on here, so they could learn. And I know it's challenging, and I know that the churches can't. A lot of times are afraid. Church leaders are so afraid to do so, and the main thing is because the reality is the fact that because they this is their theology, this is the church's uh, belief for a very long time, it becomes part of their identity, right? We were talking about this earlier, how the struggle of identity
mm,
is Christian as well. And so to challenge my identity, where we bring different voices and different people to listen to and understand, I could completely understand how difficult that is. To a point, sometimes a lot of churches and individuals will decide, as a community or individuals will decide that, you know what, I don't want to go into this. It's too much for me. It's challenging for me, and I don't want to do it. But I really challenge the church to do it because if you don't, if the church doesn't do it, the church is always going to take a side,
mm,
and whether they're silent, whether they're speaking, they're going to always take a side. And I do not want them to take any side except the side of Christ and what he wants for justice and peace, not only in Palestine and Israel, but in the entire world. I don't want the
mm,
church to take sides in any political matter. I don't want the church to take sides on whatever because of prophetic reasons they believe in, because of Israel and what Israel is and who Israel is. I don't want to take sides. I don't want them to be pro-Palestinians and take sides with the Palestinians. I want them to take sides in justice and the kingdom of God and what God Christ is telling us to do amidst of any issues and problems, whether it's a war or whether it is it an issue that is even internally, like in the US, of what's going on now. Put Christ in the center, and let God Christ guide you. And one of the ways is to challenge ourselves, get new perspectives. Let's learn more. Let's be open more. So I
Mm,
guess that's one of it. But as you said, it's wide thing. There's a lot of other ways, but it's just one of the
yeah.
things that came to my mind.
Thank you. If, if people want more challenges, they can listen to the podcast. But
And yeah,
yeah, but no, thank you for that. Being on the side of Christ, on the side of what justice and peace look like for in the kingdom. Hmm. Thank you. All right. I'm gonna give it maybe about 15 minutes, which is not nearly long enough, but I want to leave space for what's coming up for other folks. All of you who are watching have been listening, appreciating some of the comments in the chat. I mentioned again, if you came in late, this is being recorded. Um, so you are welcome to raise your hand and we'll invite you to speak. If you do, then you'll be on the video. If you don't want to be on the video, then you can put your question in the chat and we'll just read it out. So either is fine. Yeah, for everybody here. What do you want to ask? What are you curious about? What do you want to hear more about? People need a moment to soak this in and sit with it. This has been deep and powerful and challenging.
I'd just like to say
Mm,
thank you so much, Saleem. Like, I don't have a question, but I think it's felt really encouraging in this time of deep conflict and all the things going on to be in a community where there's collective grief and then there's a collective choice to align with Jesus and who he is and to bring our griefs to him. So I just want to say this has felt really encouraging in the darkness that there's a light and a seeking of the light. So thank you.
mm, Thank you, Christine. Amen. Yes. There's a question in the chat from Gail, which actually I'm going to expand on slightly. So Gail says, per my comment above, I wonder if you have had communication with more progressive Christians um, who are and have been solidly supporting you. Um, Maybe take that in a little bit. Like, what has the response been like in the church in the West? There are quite a few who, as Gail said, like either do support you or have been quite a bit and have been on your perspective. And I imagine there's many more who are being confronted by this.
yeah. And the reality, like I think there has been much much louder, good voice, a stronger voice in the Western Church that is really challenging themselves uh, either supporting us as Palestinian Christians, supporting the church, listening, reaching out, and that's one of the things that has been very encouraging in the past 2 years. Honestly, if you ask anyone here, what does the word hope mean? It's out of our dictionary at the moment.
Mm,
We don't understand what does it mean. Um, but one of the things is, despite of the lack of hope and the not knowing what hope is, if it wasn't for the fact that there is a good amount of churches and Christians in the world that are supporting, encouraging, visiting, despite of the challenge of visiting as well. Uh, if it wasn't for them, we would literally believe that the church has completely abandoned us and the church has completely ignored the reality of what's going on here, and then we will just whatever, let's just go home and let the flame turn off. But if it wasn't for that, um, that existed for since then, and it's growing, I really believe it's growing, that supported us a lot.
mm, yeah. Um, Tola, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Do I have to turn my camera on? Because I'm not really. Right,
Nope.
that's good.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
I'll lower my hand. It's more of a comment than a question. And it's not the first time I've heard this. I wanted to refer to some of the closing comments by Saleem. Thank you. I also missed a big chunk of it because of other obligations. But I did catch some of the latter part of the discussion, and you were talking towards the end about not taking sides and not being partisan. And I've heard others in Palestinian Christians or allies, Christian allies, say similar things. I can think of one example from across the divide, in fact, but I can't remember the name of the minister. Um, but and I know what you mean, because it's, you don't want people to get into a blind loyalty where, like we see with Zionism, where it doesn't matter what is done,
Yes.
what is said. It's like, well, no, this is where my allegiance is. And similarly, when you talk about political agendas and ideologies, I understand also what you mean, because if a particular party, if one has a loyalty to a particular party or profess politics, and that itself deviates from our Christian values or our principles, then we have to be able to stick with our principles and our values and not go with whatever that party is doing. But I do think that there needs to be a nuance and some qualification of these kinds of statements, because there's the African American theologian, activist, writer, Jamal Tisby. He has a charity or some kind of, I think it's a foundation called Justice Takes Sides. And I think on a contextual basis, you can take sides. You can take sides. And I appreciate that terminology like pro-Palestinian, it makes it sound like a football game. It doesn't, it's not helpful. And I understand why people use it. It's not necessarily, but it doesn't, I understand it can sound oversimplistic, but I do think you can point at different times in history where it would have been right to take sides with a particularly oppressed group of people, whether it's apartheid, whether it's Nazi Germany, whether it's the transatlantic slave trade, whether it's whether it's the killing fields in Cambodia. I mean, there would have been a time to side with the people being oppressed, and that's not to say that, as we see with the kind of what's happening in Israel now with the Jewish population that settled there, because you took sides with the Jewish people in the Second World War doesn't mean you always take sides with whatever Jewish person does in the name of the state of Israel. But I do think that there's nothing wrong with taking sides. I understand you should take sides with justice, and let that be your thread. But I just think it's important to. I think it can sound too grey, or not even too great. It can sound too non-committal when you speak like that. Similarly with politics, politics is everywhere. Politics is even in our interpersonal relationships. So the idea that we can be apolitical, it's not helpful, and I don't think we even should be, because even being apolitical is also a form of a political. It's still a form of politics in a way. It's choosing to disengage, which itself is a political choice. So I hear what you're saying, and I hear that you don't want people to be even more polarized, but I don't think there's anything wrong with taking sides, because justice will lead you to take sides in any given situation where oppression is happening. That's what I'm trying to say.
I completely agree with you, Tola. Don't, what I meant is not to take sides, is not to be pro-Palestinian just because against Israel, or pro-Palestinian just because they're Palestinians. As Christians, this is my opinion. Christ himself took sides. Jesus, if we look at read the Bibles, he took sides. Jesus himself took a side with the oppressed. He took sides with the sinners. He took sides with the people who needed the help. He took sides. So it's not like we should not take sides. But just as you said what I was meaning is to take sides with the people who are oppressed. So today, if the reality is because of the political terms as Palestinians, because of the occupation, be so. Uh, Whatever, as you said, in other places around the world, the same thing. Um, It's because as Christians, we were called to take side in the sense of how God is telling us is to support the oppressed, not because of political terms, not because exactly how you explained it. So yeah, I'm just uh, adding to exactly what you were saying. Take sides with the oppressed. I think that's better to say it than not to take sides at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have that conversation with a number of people frequently about what does taking sides mean and not. I think that is a complex enough conversation. That should be another one we have in coming months. It's big. Um, I have one more quick one from the chat, and then Jason, and then I think that's all that we have time for. Gail was wondering about the name of your church.
I go to the Lutheran Church, not Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem, in Beit Sahor. There's a small Lutheran church community that I go to.
Thank you. Jason.
Just one thing, Saleem. Yatakalafi.
Laughing, thank you.
If you want to give the rest of us more context for that, you don't have to. But
I'll let the native speaker give context for it.
It means God gives you health, and that God gives you health back. So
thank you.
We say it all at the Lebanese checkpoints to the soldiers.
I appreciate that context too. As part of the practicing nonviolence, loving your enemy. All right. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Thank you, Saleem. I'll share my screen here in just a moment with some parting invitations. I can find the right screen here to share. All right. Yeah, I want to invite you to stay connected to Peace Catalyst and get further in. I gave the introduction to who Peace Catalyst is and the sort of things we do at the beginning. Yeah, just a little bit more about what we do. Peace Catalyst is focused on helping the church and our neighbors figure out how to be peace builders in our own context. Saleem is doing this very, very intently with his community, how to be peace builders. And work for justice in his context, and we have people scattered across the globe who are doing that in their own contexts. And we're also committed to speaking to the church more widely and helping the church recapture this vision of peace and this vision of justice as part of the heart of the gospel and what we are supposed to be working for, how we are partnering with God in the world. And we see this again, why we're partnering with Saleem in the Across the Divide podcast, inviting the church into a different vision. So at Peace Catalyst, we do this by both equipping the church. We do workshops like this. We do workshops in small groups and deeper trainings. We invite people on peace building pilgrimages. I mentioned earlier we are about to take one in partnership with Seville. We're going to be taking a group to the West Bank, to Bethlehem. We would have seen Saleem. That's been postponed because of the current war going on, the next current war. Our peace builders speak and preach. They're happy to come to your church if you have people around you. We do webinars, podcasts, toolkits. We have many more recordings like this. A lot of these conversations get recorded. You can come back to them. And we're also focused on mobilizing the church. We don't just want to educate the church. We want to help the church get involved. We want to help the church take action. We're not just about educating. We're like, great, come do this with us. All of our peace builders are involved in local projects where we are. We are trying to model this work, and we speak to the churches around us, say, awesome, come do this with us. Or if you're not in our context, such as Saleem, figure out how to partner with the work that we are doing. Be peace builders alongside of us. If you are looking for a community, if you want to get deeper into peace building yourself, talk to us about being a volunteer peace building, peace ambassador. Launch your own project, be part of our team. We will support you in doing something in your community. Many of our team members fundraise for full and part-time staff so they can invest more time in this. If you want to be doing that, if you want to get deep into this and make this part of your profession, we would love to help you with that. And even if you're not going to get involved in those ways, you're not next to a Peace Catalyst person, don't know how to get involved, you don't want to do it professionally, and you're like, we already have projects going on, we're already doing stuff, and you want more coaching, connection, support, community to help figure out, to feel connected in doing that, talk to us. We want to stay connected. We want to support you in the peace building work you're doing. So learn with us, get busy with us. We'd love to stay connected. I want to invite you to consider donating Peace Catalyst. We are in the middle of a campaign of trying to get 100 new recurring donors at $50 a month. If you donate to this central fund, that helps support events like this. It helps fund under-resourced Indigenous peace builders around the world, including Saleem, including many others in the Across the Divide podcast, and many people outside of the US. This fund is the one that helps us to do programs like this and the deeper trainings, where we really focus, how do we empower and equip the church with resources, skills, trainings, not just theology, but like tangible skills for how do you connect across differences and heal divides. As well as this fund provides the administrative support and the community and the coaching so that all of our peace builders can focus on their work without having to deal with all the back end to keep things going. So we would love for you to help support us. I also want to invite you to support Saleem in the Across the Divide podcast. Saleem mentioned earlier on this call that particularly since October 7th, tourism has been hard and is shut down. A lot of other things harder for money to get in and out. A lot of other businesses shut down. Saleem is spending a lot of his time trying to find other jobs to be able to afford the work that he's doing. If you were to donate to him, become a regular donor, his accounts and Across the Divide are kind of the same because he gets paid through that. Becoming a monthly donor for Saleem would give him a lot more spaciousness and freedom to continue doing the peace building work that he is doing well. So I'd love for you to like donate to Peace Catalyst generally. Maybe donate to Saleem first. If your funds allow you to donate to both, we would love for you to support the greater vision. And even if you cannot donate, stay in touch, come to future things, stay connected. Let's be in community together. Thank you all so much. We will send out a follow-up email with some of this information. I don't know about Saleem, but I can stick around for a little bit if people want to chat further. Saleem, you're welcome to if you need to, if you can, but if you need to run off, you're welcome to do that also. Peace to you all. Thank you for your time.